volatile topics and high yield topics will be covered so that we can assure you with top-notch grades in your exams. We'll be focusing towards your university exams in this series. So we take the class in the form of questions, okay? So all the essay type short answer questions will be covered, like the important sources of various minerals of copper, the associated disorders of copper, and of other important minerals as well. Then what are the functions and disorders associated with zinc fingers and what are zinc fingers? And in short answer questions, we have the difference between the major and the minor, that is trace elements, then the functions and the associated disorders of various minerals covered in short question and answers. In essay types, we'll be talking about copper, iron, zinc fingers, and associated disorders. Introducing you to the core features of Oracle. Here at Oracle, we have live classes to elevate your learning experience. And apart from live classes, we also provide you with recorded lectures so that you can assess. Apart from that, we also provide you with notes based on the latest syllabus with fun zones and self-assessment included. Then we also give you question banks so that you can assess the knowledge that you've gained here. Then introducing you to the subscription plan Oracle. So here at Oracle, we have 3 different subscription plans, followed by the standard plan, which is for 6 months, and it's going to cost you 30,000, and the mentorship plan, which is for 12 months and comes at 50,000. So in this mentorship plan, we have personalized guidance as well as notes will also be provided. Then you can avail additional 20% discount on all the subscriptions that I have mentioned above by using my promo code. Then a very unique feature of Oracle is that we provide personalized counseling sessions. So it's like a therapy from the academy from our end, which is not necessarily pertaining to your academics. Then also we're available. So feel free to book a slot with us anytime in case you need any extra guidance from our end. We'll be glad to help you in that. Okay, now let's begin with our class for today. That is mineral metabolism. So it's taking some time to load. So introducing you with mineral metabolism, just like vitamins, minerals are also very important for our body. Unique parts or components of important enzymes in the body. So that is why they become very important, just like vitamins. Okay, so they're the body's master builders. Before I begin, it is very important to maintain a certain range or level of minerals in our body. Okay, for example, talking about, let's say, calcium. So calcium homeostasis, that is the regulation of plasma calcium levels. Okay, so there is a certain range, a certain level that has to be maintained. In the level, it can lead to various disorders. As I'm taking the example of calcium, so in the case of calcium, it can cause tetany. Now, what is that? That is involuntary muscle contraction, and it is due to low blood calcium levels. Due to okay. So, what I'm trying to say is that there you need to maintain or regularize the levels of minerals present in the plasma. For example, here I've taken tetany. Okay, so it is due to low blood calcium levels. So firstly talking about what are minerals. Okay, so minerals are inorganic elements. Like we spoke that vitamins are organic molecules. Your minerals are inorganic elements that play crucial roles in various biochemical and physiological functions. Okay, so minerals are inorganic elements that are required for various biochemical and physiological functions taking place in the body. Now, second point is there physiological process that involves the regulation, absorption, transport, and excretion of essential minerals in the body. Okay, so you require minerals. Then, apart from that, you also need to have a regulation of their levels. You need to metabolize them. So, what is mineral metabolism? It is a physiological process by which you regulate their levels and from the body. So they are essential for the proper functioning of enzymes, hormones, and other cellular processes. Okay, and you know that these enzymes, hormones, they're all required for the proper functioning of the body. So that is how you minerals also become very important. Okay, so before we take individual minerals one by one, let's have a look at their classification. So they classified into major trace elements or micro minerals. So let's have a look at the difference between the two. So your macro minerals, also known as mineral major elements, are essential inorganic nutrients required by the human body in relatively large quantities for physiological functions. Okay, and what is the requirement per day? It is more than major elements or micro minerals. They are those that are required in large quantities. Okay, and examples include your calcium, phosphorus, sodium, potassium, chloride, magnesium, and sulfur. So they come under major elements. Now, talking about trace elements, the name itself is very suggestive. Trace elements or trace minerals, they are essential inorganic nutrients needed by the body in very small quantities. Okay, so they are required in very small quantities for proper physiological functioning. So, this is in contrast to your macro minerals, which were required in large quantities, your micro minerals, they're required in minute quantities. And what is the requirement? It is less than 100 micrograms per day. And the example includes iron, fluorine, copper, iodine, chromium, selenium. So that was the difference between your major and trace elements. Okay, now let's talk about the individual minerals one by one. So we'll begin with copper, very important. What are the sources and functions of copper, and then the disorders associated with it? So talking about the sources of copper, you get it from nuts, cereals, and copper. So your copper plays an important role in formation of many enzymes. So copper is actually a component of various important enzymes. Let's have a look at those important enzymes. Your serum ferrooxidase, your ALA synthase, very important. It is involved in heme synthesis. Monoamino oxidase, your cytosolic superoxide dismutase, this is involved in free radical scavenging. Then your tyrosinase was involved in melanin synthesis, your lysyl oxidase involved in collagen synthesis, then cytochrome oxidase, your dopamine oxidase involved in catecholamine synthesis. Oxidase, we've already said that. So some of the important reactions requiring these copper containing enzymes are, then we'll discuss it. So we see that your copper is forming an important part of many important enzymes, okay? And the list of the enzymes we've seen, and we know that all these enzymes, they are involved in some important molecular means, or in the synthesis of collagen, in the synthesis of your melanin, or in the synthesis of heme. So all of them, all these enzymes of which copper is a part, they're all important enzymes. So any deviation or error in the normal level of copper will actually be affecting these enzymes, and in turn the functions of these enzymes will be hampered. So having a look at the reactions in which copper is required. So firstly, talking about mobilization of iron or iron transport. So copper ceruloplasmin is what? It is your serum ferrioxidase. So your ceruloplasmin is synthesized in liver, and it contains 6 atoms of copper in its structure. So your ceruloplasmin, it contains copper in its structure. Okay, so you see that copper is forming an integral part or component. It is an important component of ceruloplasmin, and this ceruloplasmin acting as an enzyme, serum ferrioxidase. And this serum ferrioxidase is catalyzing the conversion of Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus. So your Fe3 plus is the oxidized state. This is the ferrous state. So it is basically converting ferric iron into ferrous iron, okay? And because iron, it can be transported only in the Fe3, that is ferrous form, by the transferrin and blood plasma, which is involved in iron transport. So your transferrin, it is a glycoprotein present in blood plasma involved in iron transport. And this transferrin, it has a high affinity for, so it is saying that copper is an important part of ceruloplasmin, and ceruloplasmin, it is having 6 atoms of copper in its structure. So you see how important copper is becoming for ceruloplasmin. If there's copper deficiency, what will happen? There will actually be deficiency of ceruloplasmin. And if ceruloplasmin is deficient, what will not happen? Its activity of acting as a serum. And if this enzyme activity will be hampered, what will happen? The transport of iron by transferrin will be hampered. So you see how ceruloplasmin here in this diagram, you can see is converting Fe2 plus into Fe3 plus into the oxidized state. Okay. Now, in synthesis of hemoglobin, how does copper synthase? And ALA synthase is an important enzyme in heme synthesis. So, if ALA synthase is absent or defective because of low levels of copper, what will happen? Ultimately, your heme synthesis will be affected. And if heme synthesis will be affected, what will finally be affected? Your hemoglobin levels will be affected. Now, formation of collagen, elastin, how is this being hampered? Because copper is also an important lysyl enzyme in collagen synthesis. Now, synthesis of melanin, how? Because copper is also an important constituent of tyrosinase, and tyrosinase enzyme is involved in, it is an important enzyme in melanin synthesis. And then copper is also forming an important constituent of hydroxylase enzyme, dopamine hydroxylase, and your dopamine hydroxylase, it is involved catecholamine synthesis. So Copper is also going to affect calcium synthesis in case it is. Okay, so catecholamine synthesis is also going to be affected because of low levels of copper. And then another important function of copper is antioxidant function. How is it involved in antioxidant function? Because copper is also forming an important constituent of your superoxide dismutase, and superoxide dismutase, it is an enzyme which is involved in free radical scavenging. Okay, so free radicals, we know how damaging they are. So if there is any defect in the levels of copper, what will happen? Your superoxide dismutase will actually be uh, hampered, or its activity will be affected, which in turn will be affecting its activity of scavenging free radicals. So the free radicals, the level of free radicals will increase into a lot of damages. Then electron transport chain, what we discussed today only, complex 4 cytochrome oxidase, it was having copper A, copper B, if you remember, centers. So what will happen? If there is copper deficiency, what will happen? Your cytochrome oxidase or complex 4 of the electron transport chain will be defective, because of which what will happen? It will be kind of inhibiting complex 4, okay? So your electron transport chain will be affected, which will be affecting oxidation and phosphorylation both. Not talking about this also, these were the functions, these enzymes, then you will be very easily able to relate, okay? Because if you know the enzymes, and you will know in which pathway these enzymes are required, so you will know what are the functions of copper. Now talking about the disorders of copper, very important, Menkes disease, or also known as Menkes-Kinkey hair syndrome. So here what is happening? Copper iron deficiency is low. Because of this low levels of copper, the copper in the blood and your ceruloplasmin is also reduced. Ceruloplasmin, and this is happening because of defect in ATP7A gene. So your ATP7A gene is defective, because of which it is producing defective ATP7A protein. Now your ATP7A protein, it is basically involved in homeostasis of calcium, of copper, okay? In copper homeostasis in organisms. So copper stays in intestinal cell, unable to enter blood. So what is happening is, here in this disease, your ATP7A gene is defective, which causes defective ATP7A proteins. Okay. Now this ATP7A protein, it is involved in copper homeostasis in organisms. Okay, so this therefore there is disrupted activity of this protein, which causes copper to be poorly distributed in the body cells. Okay, as it is involved in homeostasis, because of this there is poor distribution of copper in the body, leading to its accumulation in intestinal cells. Okay, so copper is going to accumulate in some tissues like your small intestinal kidneys, as there will be lower levels of copper in other tissues like intestinal cells and kidneys, whereas in other tissues like brain there will be low coppers. And why is this happening? This is happening because of defective ATP7A protein. Now talking about the clinical features, it includes child presence with mental retardation, hypotonia, that is weak muscle tone, this premature birth, presence in infancy, which forms melanin. So patient has a gray depigmented hair, because melanin is the pigment which provides color. Okay, it is responsible for pigmentation. So as tyrosine is effective, your melanin will be affected, melanin synthesis will be affected. Therefore, there will be depigmented hair. And lysyl oxidase is affected, so you will have defective collagen, which leads to brittle, kinky hair. You can see here in this diagram, depigmented kinky hair is also because of lysyl oxidase being defective. You have defective collagen, and then there is accumulation of copper in intestinal cells. Okay. Now talking about another disorder related to copper, that is Wilson's hepatolenticular degeneration. Here, what is copper is excess in the body. There was deficiency of copper. Now in Menkes, now in Wilson's, what is happening in the body? A copper in blood and urine is increased. Defective ATP7A protein was defective. Here ATP7B protein is defective, and this ATP7B protein, this is also involved in regulating copper homeostasis. Okay, so because of copper toxicity, there will be high levels of intracellular hepatic copper resulting in hepatic diseases and neurological abnormalities. Okay, so what is happening here? Because of this, there is intracellular hepatic copper, okay, resulting in hepatic diseases and neurological abnormalities. So you can see hepatosplenomegaly here, cirrhosis here. This is all because of excess copper. Also, another important feature your KF rings. What is that? That is Kaiser fleshy rings present in the cornea. So these are actually due to copper deposition. Due to copper deposition, these are brown or grayish green rings in cornea, okay, surrounding the iris. Okay. Another feature is sunflower-shaped cataract in lens of the eyes. So all of these are your clinical features of Wilson's disease. Here in this diagram, it will be, it is showing proximal renal tubular dysfunction. Then in the liver, the hepatomegaly, jaundice, acute hepatitis, all of these cirrhosis. Okay, this is because of intracellular hepatic accumulation of copper. Then in the bones, arthritis, rickets, then hemolysis, then neurological abnormalities affecting the central nervous system. What are those? You can see here poor scholastic focusing, okay, dysphagia, all of this, and in the eyes, another important thing that is KF rings. Okay, so these are all the clinical features of Wilson's disease. Hemolytic anemia, renal damage. Now, penicillinamine drug helps in chelation of copper. Okay, so this is the treatment. What is this drug? This drug is basically, it is a chelating agent. Okay, so this is used to remove chelating agent used to remove excess copper. Okay, so that was about Menkes and Wilson's disease. Now talking about copper toxicity occurs because of excess use of brass utensils. So if you use brass utensils, toxicity. Clinical include stools and saliva, hemolysis, and renal damage. So that was all about copper. Copper is important, therefore. So talking about its functions and associated disorders. So it has antioxidant property. Selenium is a crucial component of metalloenzyme glutathione peroxidase. It helps neutralize hydrogen peroxide protecting cell membrane from oxidation. Your selenium is again has a role in free radical scavenging. Therefore, in free radicals, we know how damaging they are for the cell membranes. Then this antioxidant property plays a key role in safeguarding cells from oxidative stress. So it is involved in reducing the oxidative stress in the body. Now, vitamin E sparing action. Now, what is the sparing action of selenium on vitamin E? So selenium E, which is, we all know that vitamin E has an antioxidant role. It is a chain breaking antioxidant. So selenium, it has a synergistic relationship with vitamin E. What is synergistic relationship? That is both when two things are producing an effect which is more than the individual effects of both of them. Okay, so that is some effect of selenium and copper is going to be more. So it is has a synergistic relationship with vitamin A. So both of them, they have antioxidant properties. It reduces the requirement of vitamin E and vice versa in preventing oxidative damages, okay, peroxidative damages. So both of them are having antioxidant properties. They help in free radical scavenging and help in reducing the oxidative stress. Both of them, selenium and vitamin E, it conserves these essential antioxidants in the body. Okay. Now, role in thyroid hormone conversion. Now, selenium is also an important constituent of 5' deiodinase. Okay. Now, this enzyme is responsible for converting thyroxine, that is T4, into triiodothyronine, that is T3. So, it also has selenium in its structure. Okay, so there also selenium becomes important. So the conversion of T4 T3, as we already know, is very vital in regulating thyroid hormone activities and the overall metabolism. And we know that thyroid hormone in itself is very important because it maintains the BMR. So if there's any defect in selenium, ultimately what will happen, there will be effect on thyroid hormone. Now, talking about the toxicity of selenium is known as selenosis. Anti-rest chemicals, all of this, it can lead to selenium toxicity, and the clinical features include weight loss, falling of nails, garlic, breath, odor, diarrhea, and alopecia. That is hair loss. So these are the clinical features associated with selenium toxicity. Now talking about selenium deficiency. So selenium myopathy, known as Cushing's disease. Okay, so this Cushing's disease, this is named after where it was first reported. That is in northeast China's Kashan County. Okay, so this is named after where it was first reported. That is in northeast China's Kashan County. So that is Cushing's disease. And what is endemic cardiomyopathy? What do you understand by that? Endemic, you know, that some disease which is like restricted to an area or a community. That is endemic. We all know what is endemic. Okay. And cardiomyopathy, the problems, these are those problems where your heart muscles are affected. Okay. So because of myopathy, okay, so basically the heart muscles are defective, making it harder for the heart to pump blood. So Cushing's disease is basically an endemic that is relating to here this area, Kashan County, okay, in China, and cardiomyopathy. So there are heart problems, the muscles of the heart, this problem in the muscles of the heart. And why is this so? Because there is low selenium content in the soil of that region. Okay, so the food there that is having him leading to endemic Cushing's disease, and this usually affects women of childbearing age. Okay, so there is selenium deficiency because the soil there in that area it is having low levels of selenium. Now, clinical features include weakness, eczema, hypertension, increased risk of stroke, and even cancer. Here in this diagram, you can see symptoms of selenium deficiency, tiredness, and exhaustion. Phase enzyme is going to be affected, liver damage, decreased sperm quality, scaly skin, damage to nerves and musculature, weak immune system, anemia and cardiomyopathy, weak immune system, and thin and brittle hair. So all of these are symptoms of selenium deficiency. Moving on to our next mineral, that is fluorine. Fluoride, we'll take both of them. So talking about the functions first, it is required, that is your fluoride, it is required for proper teeth development. Okay, now it prevents dental caries, that is dental decay, by strengthening the tooth enamel. So your fluoride is important in strengthening the enamel. The only source is drinking water. So that is where you're getting your fluoride. Now, for the mechanism of action, your fluoride appetite forming fluoroapatite in enamel and dentine. And this fluoroapatite is more resistant to destruction by bacterial acids, making enamel harder and resistant to decay. So what is it trying to say? That your fluorides, they are basically forming fluoroapatite in the enamel, which is providing the strength to the enamel. Okay, this fluoroapatite, it is basically resistant to the bacterial acids that are produced. Okay, the bacteria that is in a mouth, it is going to produce bacterial acids via certain enzymes. So your fluoride, it is going to inhibit those enzymes. Okay, and as a result of which it is providing resistance to those bacterial acids and thus giving you a strong enamel. Okay, so the fluoride inhibits bacterial enzymes that produce acids causing dental caries. Now, dental, because of the inhibition of these enzymes that are going to produce bacterial acids, okay, therefore your fluoride becomes important. I'll repeat this once again. Your fluoride ions, it is going to form fluoroapatite, and this fluoroapatite, it is going to make your enamel hard. Why and how? The mechanism is that it inhibits those enzymes which convert or produce bacterial acids, and these bacterial acids are responsible for causing dental caries. So since those enzymes, what will be prevented? Dental caries will be prevented. Now talking about the disorders associated bone development, fluoride is also necessary for bone development. So apart from preventing dental caries, the fluoride is also involved in bone development. So in case of deficiency, where drinking water with less than 0.5 ppm, that is parts per million, fluoride. Now, topical fluoride application forms a protective fluoroapatite layer on the enamel, preventing dental decay. Maybe you heard about, having fluorides in your toothpaste and advertisements. So this is the reason why toothpastes have fluoride in them, because they form a protective layer on enamel, preventing or toxicity of fluoride. So it includes dental fluorosis. So intake above 2 ppm, particularly above 5 ppm in children, causes mottling of enamel, that is discoloration, white or brown spots will be seen on the enamel, and rough teeth with yellow patches. So this is when you have toxicity or excess of fluoride, especially in children. So it leads to discoloration and mottling and rough teeth with yellow patches. And talking about skeletal fluorosis, so intake above 20 ppm. When the intake is above 5 ppm, it is going to cause dental fluorosis. And when the intake is above 20 ppm, it is going to cause skeletal fluorosis, and which leads to hypercalcification and stiffening of bones, including ligaments of the spine. In advanced stages, skeletal fluorosis can result in buno valgum, crippling the individual due to stiff spines. What is valgum, that is knock knees. So on standing, what is going to happen? The knees will be touching and the ankles will be apart. So knees are touching and ankles are apart. That is knock knees, something like this. Okay, so your knees are touching and the ankles are apart. So if the levels are less than 0.5 ppm, what will happen? It will cause dental caries. So that is in case of less fluoroappetite. So it is resulting in dental caries, but if the levels are more than 5 ppm, it will cause dental fluorosis, and if that even furthermore, that is more than 20 ppm, it will cause skeletal fluorosis. Okay, so that was about fluorine. Now moving forward to the next mineral, that is zinc. So let's talk about the functions and the associated disorders with zinc. Formation of certain metalloenzymes. So use all part of your carbonic anhydrase, RNA polymerase involved in RNA synthesis, alkaline phosphatase, alcohol dehydrogenase, cytosolic superoxide dismutase involved in oxygen, free radical scavenging reductase. It is involved in regeneration of your just like copper was forming a component of important enzymes. Similarly, your zinc is also a component of various important metalloenzymes. A list of that is given here. That is carboxypeptidase, carbonic anhydrase, RNA polymerase, DNA polymerase, alkaline phosphatase, retinal reductase, glutamate dehydrogenase. Okay, here we'll actually be able to guess the function. So let's take the reactions of these enzymes one by one. So the reactions of these enzymes, basically they'll form the functions of zinc. Okay. So participation in visual cycle. How? Because it is already mentioned in the above list that zinc is a part of a component of retinal reductase enzyme, and this retinal reductase enzyme, it regenerates 11 cis retinol. Okay, your 11 cis retinol, it was combining with opsin to form rhodopsin. So basically it plays a role in regenerating rhodopsin. So therefore we can say zinc plays an essential role in regenerating rhodopsin in visual cycle, and we know rhodopsin is known as visual purple and it was involved in Wall's visual cycle. We've already done this when we were talking about vitamin A. So it must be clear to you what we're talking about. So in the regeneration of rhodopsin, your zinc becomes important. Why it becomes important? Because the enzyme that is involved in regeneration of 11-cis retinol, or we can say in regeneration of rhodopsin, that enzyme is retinal reductase, and retinal reductase has zinc in its structure. Okay, so that is how your zinc is being involved in regenerating rhodopsin, and in turn that is how now its antioxidant role. It is a component of superoxide dismutase, and superoxide dismutase, it is involved in reducing the oxidative stress, or we can say it is involved in free radical scavenging. So in that way zinc can act as an antioxidant or has antioxidant role because it is important component of superoxide dismutase. An important component of aldehyde synthesis pathway. Okay, so if zinc is deficient, what will happen? Your aldehyde will be defective, and if aldehyde is defective, so what will happen? It is going to hamper your heme synthesis. We're talking about DNA and RNA formation. zinc is essential for DNA and RNA formation. How? Because polymerase. Okay, so if DNA and RNA polymerase are going to be defective, what is going to happen? Your DNA and RNA formation and in turn cell division and cell growth is going to be affected. So that is how your zinc becomes important in DNA and RNA formation. Now talking about zinc finger motifs. So zinc is an integral component of zinc finger motifs. Now what are zinc finger motifs? These are DNA binding motifs. So transcription between DNA interactions. So facilitating the binding of certain transcription factors to specific DNA regions during transcription. Basically what it is trying to say that your zinc finger motifs, these are parts in finger-like parts in certain proteins proteins like your transcription factors. Okay, so there's a large what are transcription protein, they have finger-like motifs which have zinc coordinated to them. Okay, so those are known as zinc finger motifs, and these zinc finger motifs, they are basically DNA binding motifs. Okay, so your transcription factors, they have zinc finger motifs, and through these zinc finger motifs, your transcription factors, they use these fingers to mediate or interact with DNA. So basically they are DNA binding motifs which mediate protein mediating mediate protein DNA interactions. I'll repeat myself once again. These are DNA binding motifs. Okay, so the DNA is going to bind to zinc finger motifs. Your transcription factors, they have a domingo-like structures to which zinc are coordinated, hence the name zinc finger motifs. So your transcription factors, they are having zinc finger motifs, and they help to mediate, or they help in the interaction of DNA and the protein. Okay, so they're involved in DNA protein interaction. So that is your structure and function of zinc finger motifs. Now, insulin secretion. Talking about that, zinc is required for the storage, and zinc is also essential for maintaining the integrity of the immune system. Then zinc containing protein gustin present in saliva plays an important role in taste sensation. So these are all the functions we're talking about zinc. Okay, first was in uh, interaction of protein and DNA. How? Because of zinc finger motifs. Then in the storage and secretion of insulin. Then in maintaining the important role in taste sensation. Then zinc also plays a role in wound healing. Then it is also involved in normal reproduction and sexual maturation. So these are all the functions of zinc. Now talking about the deficiency of zinc, zinc deficiency leads to poor diet and hypogonadism. Hypogonadism, okay, hypogonadism is failure of gonads to function properly. Failure of gonads to function properly. So that is your testes and ovaries. They are not going to produce enough sex hormones. Okay. Another clinical feature is acro, very rare disorder. This is due to zinc deficiency, and it leads to simultaneous diarrhea and dementia. So there is inflammation around nose, mouth, anus, cheeks, and elbow. So you can see here in this diagram, red or pink color papules or rashes you can see. First they appear on the thighs and on the buttocks, and then later on they're present on the hands and the cheeks, near the mouth, anus area. So all of this you can see here in this diagram. Papules or rashes appear. So this is because of what is known as ectodermatitis enteropathy. Okay, and this is due to zinc deficiency. So it is an autoimmune disorder because of zinc deficiency. So here's a summary table talking about the zinc functions. So let's just recapitulate what we've already studied. So it is forming a component of important certain metalloenzymes. We've already discussed the enzymes like the carboxypeptidase, carbonic anhydrase, RNA polymerase, alkaline phosphatase, SOD, retinol reductase, glutamate, and alcohol dehydrogenase components. Then it is involved in visual cycle. We've already discussed how because it was involved in regenerating rhodopsin because it was part of retinol reductase. Then its antioxidant role because it is a component of superoxide dismutase, heme synthesis because it is a component of aldehyde, RNA and DNA formation because it is a component of RNA DNA polymerase, zinc finger motor of transcription factors to DNA, in insulin secretion, so it is required for storage and secretion of insulin. It is also important for maintaining the immunity, important for taste sensation because zinc containing protein gustin in saliva is responsible for taste sensation. Okay, so your gustin, it contains zinc, so that is ungustin is responsible for taste involved in taste sensation. Now, wound healing, and in case of normal reproduction and sexual maturation, also your zinc is needed. So, if you have a look at this chart, so you will be able to have all the functions of zinc together. So basically, if you remember the enzymes of which it is a part, you will also be able to remember or relate the functions of zinc. Moving ahead, talking about iodine. So first we'll take the functions of iodine. The only biological function of iodine is the formation of thyroid hormone. So when we were studying the hormones, we had studied how your iodine was involved in thyroid formation. There was organification. That is, your iodine was being incorporated into thyroglobulin, the tyrosine residues of thyroglobulin. So your formation of thyroid hormones, the process we've already discussed. Iodine is required for the synthesis of thyroxine, that is T4 and T3. T3 is functionally more active than T4. Now talking about the deficiency, simple endemic goiter. In this, there is deficiency of iodine in the food, which causes goiter. So therefore, you must have seen in advertisements of Tata salts, iodinated salts. It is involved in thyroid hormones and the functions of thyroid hormone. We already know the most important being it is involved in maintaining the basal metabolic rate of the body. So mainly seen in geographical areas where sea coast, the water and soil are low in iodine content. Okay, so in that area, you need to have iodine in the food in order to prevent endemic goiters. Now, iodine deficiency disorders. To denote iodine deficiency, the term iodine deficiency disorder leads to a group of disorders like hypothyroidism, cretinism, deaf mutism, goiter, and subnormal intelligence. Intake of iodine or iodized salt is advised to prevent iodine deficiency disorders. Okay, so that is why you need to take iodized salt. Now talking about toxic goiter, increased iodine uptake may lead to toxic goiter or hypothalamic goiter. What is that? That is an autoimmune disease caused due to manganese. Talking about the functions of manganese, it is a constituent of bone and teeth. So sorry, not manganese, magnesium. Okay, magnesium is a crucial constituent of bone and teeth with approximately 16 grams present in the bone. A cofactor for enzymes. Magnesium serves as a cofactor for many enzymes, including hexokinase, fructokinase. Remember all these enzymes, they are involved in glycolysis. Okay, so magnesium is a cofactor for all these enzymes in alkaline phosphatase, adenylate cyclase, and allosynthetase. Allosynthetase is involved in heme synthesis. So magnesium is a cofactor for these enzymes. We're talking about this neuromuscular function. Magnesium is essential for proper neuromuscular function. It decreases neuromuscular excitability. When combined with calcium, it acts as a relaxant during activity and after contraction. About insulin sensitivity function, magnesium can lead to decreased insulin dependent uptake of glucose. Supplementation with magnesium can improve glucose tolerance. Okay, so what is going to happen if there is decreased magnesium? Your uptake of glucose, that is from the skeletal muscles and all that, your cellular uptake of glucose is going to decrease. So with supplementation of magnesium, you can increase glucose tolerance, decrease. So we see that magnesium is playing an important role is insulin sensitivity. It is involved in increasing the cellular uptake of glucose. Now, protein synthesis and genetic material, magnesium is involved in activating amino acids for protein synthesis and facilitates the synthesis and maintenance of genetic materials, that is so protein, magnesium is all synthesis. Now, talking about the dietary deficiency of magnesium, dietary deficiency of magnesium is rare because it is widely distributed in food. Magnesium deficiency is typically seen in combination with protein energy malnutrition, alcoholism, and persistent diarrhea. Symptoms of deficiency may include muscle weakness, cramps, and hypertension. There's not much that I can explain in this. This is basically a chapter about facts. You just have to go through them again and again so that you're able to memorize certain facts. Overconsumption and toxicity. Dietary access of magnesium is unlikely to reach toxic levels. However, individuals with renal inefficiency who receive magnesium supplements, those can show toxicity of magnesium. So, deficiency and toxicity both are rare. So, may experience the symptoms of toxicity of magnesium are vomiting. Is differentiating between magnesium deficiency and magnesium toxicity. In toxicity, there's diarrhea, nausea, vomiting. Deficiency, there's osteoporosis, and in toxicity, there's muscle weakness. Then you have cardiovascular and neurological disorders and tumors and diabetes and magnesium deficiency. On the other hand, magnesium toxicity, you have low blood pressure, loss of deep tendon reflexes. Then you have respiratory paralysis and magnesium toxicity. Moving on to our next mineral, that is molybdenum. Talking about the functions of molybdenum, so it is also forming important constituent of important enzymes like xanthine oxidase, aldehyde oxidase, sulfide oxidase, nitrite reductase. Molybdenum involved in absorption and distribution. Requirement is not clearly known, but it is widely distributed in natural foods. 60 to 70% absorption is by small intestine. Now, interaction with copper, some reports suggest molybdenum decrease mobilization and utilization of copper in the body. Now, excess of molybdenum, that is molybdenum toxicity, is known as molybdenosis. It is rare disorder caused by excessive molybdenum consumption. Manifestations include impaired growth, diarrhea, and anemia. Effect on copper absorption. Intestinal absorption of copper is diminished in molybdenosis. That is when you have excess molybdenum. So the intestinal absorption of copper is going to be reduced in that case. Now talking about chromium. Chromium is a glucose tolerance factor that is the active form of potentiate the action of insulin. That is by decreasing the blood glucose. So glucose tolerance factor is going to potentiate the action of insulin. This factor, how is it synthesized? It is synthesized in vivo from dietary chromium, and it enhances the action of insulin. So chromium deficiency leads to glucose intolerance. Why? Because if they will potentiate the action of insulin, that is, it is going to decrease. You will grow intolerant to glucose. Okay, so that is all for today's class. In the next class, we'll continue with the rest of the minerals that are left. So this is a topic where you basically have to like read through the facts again and again, so that they go into your long-term memory. You're able to memorize them. This is basically which is going to involve a lot of memorial information that you need to remember. Nothing, not like very conceptual where you need to understand a lot of things. Basically factual. So wherever some explanation was necessary, I've given you that. Apart from that, these are basically facts that you need to remember. If you go through them over and over again, you'll be able to memorize them quickly. And the rest of the minerals, I think we're going to talk about them in the next class on mineral metabolism. That is our next class in this series. Okay, thank you for watching. See you in the next class.